This has to be one of the most spiteful interviews that I have ever read. And it's spiteful towards the fans. It's spiteful towards the people that put food on this man's table. And it's very spiteful in general. It's also throws in a little bit of casual racismus in the mix just because that's popular. I mean, apparently fans were upset because they wanted the pretty white people to ride off into the sunset. What does race have to do with any of it? The reason people are upset about the Game of Thrones TV show is very well documented. There are thousands of YouTube videos by now, people analyzing it frame by frame. George R.R. Martin, one of the pretty white people who's responsible for, yet again, putting food on this man's table, who wrote the story, doesn't like what the TV show did. And the TV show was written by pretty white people as well, who yet again put food on this man's table. Without pretty white people, this man would not have food on his table. So what on earth is his problem? What is with this casual racism thrown in there? You replace pretty white people with any other race or gender and you would be in trouble. And he probably knows it, which is why he said it. I guess he's looking for a new job right now. He needs some publicity. So if this was maybe 40 or 50 years in the past, he would have said something about Jewish people or black people, because that's what they did back then. But now it's all about the pretty white. Okay, fine. You know, I don't even care about it, but it's how uneducated and spiteful towards the fans he is. I mean, look at this. First of all, he says that fans were let down by the show's finale. They wanted the pretty white people to ride off into the sunset together. No, they just wanted the same quality that the show started off as to continue towards the end. The problem is that the show started off by inspiring itself from the books, and once they got out of the books, it showed that the writers had absolutely no clue how to continue writing. In fact, I would even point to the character of Tyrion. He was very smart and articulate in the beginning, but towards the end of the seasons, he's just there. I mean, he doesn't do anything. He doesn't say anything smart. He doesn't have a plan anymore. He's literally just there to be overshadowed by the other more important characters. And I didn't like that. You know, I thought his character deserves better. But yes, I didn't see Tyrion, the pretty white person that he is, fly off onto the sunset. So I guess maybe that's why I was disappointed. Now look at this. This is what really upset me, because it's so spiteful. By the way, it's fiction, he added with a laugh. There's dragons in it, move on. How would he like it if he doesn't get paid for this? How would he like it if his boss said, oh, well, it's just make-believe, it's just fiction. What, you're expecting compensation for it? If it's just fiction, why did he have a wage of millions of dollars? He earned more than a doctor. He earned more than any essential worker to keep society running. You can keep a society running without an actor. Good luck keeping a society running without a trucker. So he's getting paid millions of dollars, and then he is mocking his work. Like, he doesn't even take his work seriously. Having pride in his work is something that goes way above Peter Dinklage, I guess. This is the thing that really annoys me. So what if it's fiction? Like, that does mean that anything that's not a documentary doesn't have to be entertaining? Because that's why people were upset about it. Wasn't entertaining towards the end. And it's not just fiction, it's people time and money and resources, which Peter Dinklage is mocking. Doesn't think your time and resources are important. And furthermore, he goes on, it's like, oh, well, it's just fiction, there's dragons in it. Yeah, those dragons made you famous. I'm willing to bet that 80% of his fan base wouldn't know who he is if it wasn't for those dragons. It is just such a low take. It's got dragons in it. Like, dude, you're paid to act. Your job is just as insignificant as those dragons. Again, without you, society would still be right. Like, you're an actor. You get that, right? Way overpaid for what you're doing. But alright, fine. Yeah. It's one of the thing when an actor like appreciates his position and how lucky he is and blah blah blah. But to be so spiteful towards the fans, towards the people that lifted you up, a little bit more spiteful, and he could actually be a politician, because politicians are probably like next in line when it comes to being spiteful towards the people that raised them up. But okay, so the HBO series was based on the novels of R.R. Martin. And he's upset because people asked HBO to redo the entire last season. Oh my god. Again, these people were paid millions of dollars to do this. And they're upset because people didn't like the end result. And now they're spiteful towards the people. Whatever. Good luck finding people watching your next movie, I guess. The show subverts what you think, and that's what I love about it. So this obsession, this masturbatory obsession with subverting your expectations. Yes, like, congratulations, I expected to be entertained, and you subverted them. Although, to be fair, by the end of the seasons, I expected the writing to be shit. I mean, everyone noticed the massive plunge in quality when it came to the last seasons, like when they moved away from the books. So my expectation would have actually been subverted had there been good writing. Not that bullshit that they pulled off where all the undead are surrounding Bran and Arya Stark materializes from the ether, even though there was no place where she could even climb. She just comes from the high heavens and stabs the Night King. I mean, yes, my expectations were totally subverted that day. It's called Game of Thrones, but at the end, the whole dialogue when people would approach me on the street was, who's going to be on the throne? I don't know why that was their takeaway, because the show was really more than that. It was more than that, but that was a big part of it. Like, people were actually curious who was going to sit on the throne. Yeah, it's called Game of Thrones. Good catch. Good catch, Dinklage. Yes, it's called Game of Thrones. People were actually curious to know who was sitting on the throne. Like, what was he expecting? Like, people to ask him every single loose end that there could possibly have been? Of course, like, people, if they get to ask one question, they're going to ask the most important question. Not to mention, like, any question that people would ask you, you'd probably not know how to answer. Let's be honest. It's like, why did the Night King do what he did? Can you answer that? Because I don't know. Like, why didn't the Night King invade sooner? Why did the Night King had his entire army die with him? I mean, they're just... I don't know the answer to these questions either. Well, boy, I'm lucky I got myself invested into that show. Totally worth it. Dinklage, who will be next to him in the upcoming movie, Cyrano, wow. I appreciate that you told me, so I know not to see this movie. Said one of the funniest moments from the finale was when the dragon burned the throne. Oh yeah, that was another dumb take. So the dragon, after seeing Daenerys being killed, spoiler alert, looks at Jon, and then looks at the throne and burns the throne as if the dragon knew. How did the dragon know? Like, there was literally no way that he would know. It's like he just burns a chair and then flies away. Like, why? There's no explanation except the fact that the writers were on crack. So apparently it killed all that conversation. What do you mean it killed all that conversation? You do know that just because you burn the throne doesn't mean that there's not going to be a king. In fact, Bran became the king. Were we watching the same TV show, Dinklage? What on earth are you talking about? It's kind of like during the French Revolution, when the French king locked the peasants out of the parliament and went like, "Nyah, what you gonna do now? Nyah." They went to a tennis court and realized, okay, well, we're the representative of the peasants, and there's a lot more of us than there are of them, so they just keep doing what they were doing. Like, the chair is a symbol, but like, even without the chair, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be a king. That is so stupid. Like, imagine going to medieval France and stealing the throne of the king by some magic, and then going like, oh, now how will France ever govern after this? BTFO France, mo. Just it's still difficult to believe that people are saying this. I mean, it's just like, wow. They constantly did that, where you thought one thing and they delivered another. So I'm not against getting people to think one thing and then deliver another, but it has to be done in a nice way. Like, for example, the Red Wedding, that part that was actually written by R.R. Martin. Yeah, that was good. Or when Ned Stark gets decapitated, like, you think Ned Stark is the hero of the story. Surely he can't die, and then he dies, right? But yeah, that subverts your expectation, but it's in a good way because it makes sense. The fact that the dragon all of a sudden hates chairs doesn't make any sense. Everybody had their own stories going on while watching that show, but nobody was good as the show delivered, I think. Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. If this show had like 4 or 5 more seasons, no one would have watched it. Like, the ratings were plummeting already. The only reason it got good ratings in the end was just because people were curious to see how the story ends. But trust me, people were very salty about it. Like, the quality of the writing was atrocious. By the way, do actors like Peter Dinklage even believe that there can be such a thing as good writing or bad writing? Or do they think, oh, it just has dragons in it, so surely people will watch it so I can make millions of dollars? And look at this. It's like, oh my god, they were angry for us breaking up with them. We were going off the air and they didn't know what to do with their Sunday nights anymore. Bitch, I can masturbate just fine. I don't need you. This is so... Imagine thinking you're so self-important that this is the reason people were upset. It's because the show ended. I mean, there are so many other shows that were good and ended and people weren't upset. I mean, Star Trek ended. Stargate ended. I didn't see people being upset about those shows. No, because they ended on a high note. They ended properly. Oh, God. We had to end it when we did because the show was really good, as it was breaking preconceivable notions. Villains became heroes and heroes became villains. There are so many other shows that do this. It's like you didn't invent the wheel. The reason people liked the show was because, well, at least when George R.R. Martin wrote it, it was nice to realize that every character has its own ambitions, and if you paid attention to details, you could figure out what those ambitions were and then kind of realize what the next step of the characters would have been. But when Dumb and Dumber, I'm sorry, D&D, Damioff and whatever his name, when they started writing it, all that went through the window. You had the Navy teleporting from one part to another. You had Cersei just getting on the throne and everyone being fine with it. As if like there were no other male Lannisters that were in line. No one was challenging her claim. And just because she sits on the throne, it means that she's actually the queen of the 7 kingdoms, even though she doesn't really have an army or anything. Apparently, you can take over castles without siege weapons, like they just BTFO'd the Queen of Thorns. Okay, just watch the scene again. I can't show you images because I'm too tired. But like they actually go and invade that castle without any siege weapons, and they take the castle. Apparently, ravens weren't invented anymore, so she couldn't actually send a raven for Daenerys to get her on a dragon so she can fly over there and help. No. There was just so much wrong with the last seasons. I can't even... The very notion that the only reason people are pissed off is because the show has ended is just bewildering. It's like, oh yes, people don't have what to do with their Sunday morning. Well, you know what? I definitely have something to do with the Sunday morning, and it involves doing things that don't give you money, Peter. If you know your history, when you track the progress of tyrants, they don't start off as tyrants. I'm talking about, spoiler alert, what happened at the end of Game of Thrones. And that's another thing, I'm not upset that Daenerys ended up being a tyrant. I mean, in the books, it's quite obvious that's what she's going to do. But in the show, it makes no sense, and it just comes off from one episode to another. It's like, oh, she's hearing bells, and now she's killing civilians. Like, why is she killing civilians? There's literally no point for her of doing it. Like, the city surrendered. Had she killed civilians when the city was still fighting her, like, okay, you know, like, maybe she doesn't care about collateral damage. Like, you could make that argument. But, like, no, she literally just, like, okay, she won, and then just burns civilians for no reason, just because she's evil. While fans are upset about the finale, there's more of Game of Thrones on the horizon. Well, I'm not watching it if Peter is in it. That's for sure, after this. You know, by the way, here's why the left wins. This is why Peter can act the way he acts. Because people on our side never get offended. Ever. You know, we just take it. We take it because we can. Because we're tough, right? Dude, if it was up to me, every time anyone even thinks about hiring Peter, there would be a huge mountain of complaints. Like, everyone would write a letter of concern. I am concerned. It's like, is he going to take the new project the same that he took the old one? Is he going to spite me in an interview? Right? Like, that's the thing. And if there was a mountain of concern, then actors would learn to keep quiet and respect the people that put food on their table. You know, you don't see me going around and attacking my subscribers. You don't see me having hot takes about you guys and throwing some casual racism in the mix. No, I don't. Why? Because I don't want letter of complaints. But it is what it is, you know. It's good, Pete. It's good. We can take it. We're big boys. We can take all the insults and all the snark and all of the poison you can throw at us. I hope your new project goes very well. I hope you got your 5 minutes of fame and your 5 minutes of publicity, and you stuck it to those evil fans that actually, and yet again, and I'll keep saying this over and over, put food on your table, because that's exactly what we did. We put food on his table. Let me know what you guys think, though, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.